What's up everybody? Welcome to another video here on Smack. If you enjoy this video, please go ahead and like it, subscribe to our channel, enjoy the show.
Whenever you're in the shit, you're always like, okay, it's not going to get worse than this. And it always is a bigger success to come out of it, and then you're in the next shit.
Hi guys, and welcome back to Snack, your favorite hospitality podcast. Today we're speaking to Naomi MacKenzie, co-founder of the Swiss startup Kaitro, that helps businesses reduce their food waste and therefore save costs. We spoke to Naomi about the early beginnings of her entrepreneurial journey, how important it is to ask for help, and about what others can take away from their up and downs over the years. So with no further ado, enjoy the show. Welcome to the podcast, Naomi. I'm glad you could join us today.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So usually I always have a kind of system that I'm going with. I start usually with asking my guests what they're currently doing, so their current position, and what that means, because usually they have very fancy titles and it's hard for an outside person to really know what that means. So if you could just tell us a little bit about what your title means and what you do on a day-to-day.
Yeah, happy to. So I'm the co-founder or co-CEO of Kaitro. And basically what it means is we're still a young company and we're not fully, let's say, convinced by how these titles are given out. Mm-hmm. I founded the company with Anastasia, and we have very similar backgrounds, and just divided the company based off of what made sense at the time. So I focus more on sales, marketing, product development, and partnerships, and she does more of the finance, admin, fundraising. But I guess in a startup, you kind of do a mix of everything. So the titles don't really mean that much right now.
And has your position or some of the departments you take care of ever changed since you founded KITRO? Because it's already been 5 years now, no?
Yeah, it's crazy, actually. I guess I hope we can still call ourselves a startup. I don't know why I like the idea of a startup, but it definitely has changed it. At the beginning, it was just Anna and I, so we were really doing everything. And then we realized the need to have more responsibilities, and not responsibilities, but more overview of certain departments. So we really said, okay, well, we're both going to support each other in each department. One person's going to really focus on that, the other on the other departments, and obviously needed to bring in a lot more people with the actual skills needed to do the software development and CTO, deputy CTO. So it's changed a lot, and even in the past few months, we've hired quite a lot of people. So it's really moved more. I would say my role, or the roles as co-CEOs, is really now more focused towards growth and the future, rather than really operational, which we've had to do for the past few years because we just didn't have a team to have a luxury to focus on the growth and strategy of Kaiju.
Mm-hmm. And what was that hard for you and Anastasia as well, a bit, like to let go in a way? Because I can imagine if you were constantly doing everything and having your fingers in basically every little topic, and then you have to move away and, of course, as a founder, look towards the future, and at some point that's your main objective. But I can imagine that if it's your baby, it's also a bit hard.
Yes, for sure. We're still in the process of it, actually. I'd say with COVID, we were quite delayed. So when we started in 2017, we really hit the market in end of 2018, 19 with the product, and then COVID hit. So it's not, I would say, a typical 5-year startup where we have that same level of growth and customer traction that we had hoped to see after 5 years. And so we are a bit delayed out in where we're at moving forward, but definitely it's a challenge, but it's also very relieving. At the beginning, we had so much energy to do everything and wanted to learn everything and have as much knowledge and experience as possible. And at some point, you just realize you really can't do it all. And there are people who are way more skilled and thankfully wanting to be part of the Kaitro team who can take over those roles that we just can't do.
Mm-hmm. Maybe I realized, because I know Kaitro so well from EHL, that we maybe went already into the topic a bit too fast. Maybe you can just in 1 or 2 sentences describe what you guys are actually doing and what you invented, and what you guys stand for.
Yeah, Absolutely. So with Kaitro, we are automating the process of food waste management for commercial kitchens. So we work with hotels, restaurants, and canteens to measure their food waste using a hardware device that goes into the kitchen area and the stewarding area. And it's based on image processing machine learning. So it uses AI essentially to remove any manual input that would be needed in order to capture all the data of what's happening in your trash bin. And based on that, we enable customers or properties to reduce their food waste by 60%. So,
yeah, it's just the first time I heard about it, of course in school, because you guys are literally the poster child, always used as the perfect example of a spin-off from EHL, which is of course a good thing, because it's just also for, I think, future generations really important to also have role models, especially also showing that you can't not only start, I don't know, a restaurant or a hotel, but also do something that is, you know, in combination with some other skills, like you just said, and what we're going to talk about a bit later, that of course you also need other people in the boat to actually make it happen, but to also think a bit outside of the box. Of course, it has a lot to do with our background with F&B, but it's taking it a lot further than that. But so you, like you said before, you guys had the idea when you were still in school, and maybe you can just tell us a bit how that came about, because I think I once heard the story, but of course I don't want to tell it the wrong way. But I think it's because you saw how much food was wasted, right, in the daily operations of a hotel.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm sure you saw during your time at EHL, and then also during internships. I don't know if you did them in kitchens or where you did your internship, but we were kind of split. Anna did hers more front of house, and I did mine always more back of house, and we saw how much food was being wasted. And this kind of sparked the initial motivation to create Kaiju. But it was actually during our university, there was innovation in F&B chair, I think, and they worked with Saviva on a food innovation challenge. So it was like a one-off challenge, and it was a video competition. And already before this competition came about, we had already talked a lot. We did our internship in Miami together. And we had talked already there about doing our final year project together, because we knew we would work really well together. We had a lot of similarities in our mindset when it came to sustainability, and kind of the problems in the hospitality industry. So when this project came up, it made a lot of sense that we just kind of stuck to it and kept talking about it we were really annoying when we first had the idea. So we would talk about it like at MBAR, or people were out at parties. We would talk about measuring food waste and what you could do if this technology existed. So it was quite a natural step for us to then continue with the idea.
But I think that's how you also know that it's really something that you burn for, because, you know, it's reassuring, and also everyone else around you really feels that, okay, this is something that you really, really care about. So of course, pursue it. So of course, maybe to others it seemed annoying, but for you, it must have been reassuring that both of you always wanted to talk about it.
For sure. And we were actually 3 when we started the first idea. So Anina was also in our year and also was part of the project. And she decided very early on in EHL that she wanted to go into hospitality. And so it was actually a discussion, and Anna and I were the ones who really just kept talking about Kaitro and what it could be. And Anina kind of was like, I don't know, I know what I want to do in life, so I'm going to go more for the hospitality, traditional hospitality focus, which was interesting to see. But that's when people ask, because there's a lot of people who say they want to be entrepreneurs, and then they ask, how do they find the idea? And I really don't know, because for us, we didn't find, like, it came to us as much as us finding the idea. We weren't actively looking to start a company. I think we both did not have this in mind at all for kind of the next steps after university. But
I guess sometimes that's even a bit more natural and sustainable in a way, because I'm sure you know Dr. Rosenkrantz at school, and she always says, like, you have to fall in love with the problem and not the solution. Because if you already start out like by saying, oh, I want to be an entrepreneur and I want to invent something great, and then yeah, you have to, because it's going to be so hard the whole way and so many obstacles in your way. So of course you need to really have a passion about the problem, because the solution you might only find, I don't know, 10 years later, 20 years later. So, yeah, I think it's a lot more than people think it's all about. But about that, one question that I also was thinking about is, apart from the obvious like kind of connections through, of course, professors or links to other universities or incubators, what is something you really took from university, or from maybe also some of your internships, that actually helped you when you started off your entrepreneurial journey?
I think probably the least obvious one for us that we knew would be that we found to be so helpful was the networking and presenting. So I was terrible at presenting during EHL. I was a person standing in front of the class and like shaking, and I couldn't say a word. But the fact that we had to do it so often, I think already helped me to overcome some of the fears. And then when I started presenting Kaitro, it was so natural for me because it was finally something that I wanted to talk about. Not that I didn't want to talk about the subjects at EHL, but it was more something I felt comfortable talking about in front of a crowd, because I knew more than anyone in the audience what I was talking about normally. So yeah, that and networking. I mean, you're constantly pitching yourself. You talk to so many people in the first years of the startup experience. So this really, it helped a lot. And I have to say, I'm really not the best at networking. I was never the best at EHL at networking or putting on the smile, but it really supported in especially the initial phases of building a startup. And that might also be, I mean, correlated to the fact that it's a hospitality focused startup, that we go to a lot of hospitality events, and it's a very, very much an industry where you have to be personal to sell.
Yeah, because you had the chance to learn it over the course of like many years. So it wasn't basically you have to just start doing it, start pitching, start being comfortable in front of people. You had time to kind of get used to it. And then when it's something that you really, really care about, it's always much easier than, a presentation you just know you have to do because it's part of an exam. Definitely.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
exactly.
I
think the other thing, sorry, go for it.
No, you go.
The other thing is we learned a lot of how we didn't want to do things. And that's not because of EHL, but more like during the internship, we really had a lot of time where we weren't given that much to do, and there was a lot of inefficient use of time. We learned a lot about team dynamics and how we wanted to create a team once we had a team, and what roles we felt were important with building a team. And a lot of this came from the group projects and that kind of, it wasn't, obviously a lot of came from in-class learnings as well, like accounting and Excel and Keynote and all of those, but a lot of it was actually the way that the classes took place and the environment in which you learned in.
Well, I'm happy you took something away from it that you can now use on a daily basis. That's always good looking back.
Yeah. Have you taken something, or what are you able to use in the
100%. But yeah. I was more the kind of typical person that has always loved presenting and, talking to millions of people every day. So it was very much, I was like a fish in an aquarium. But I can still use that every day. But I have a lot of friends that, like you said, that it really helped them improve one of their fears that they constantly had. Because in the end, I would say in probably 90% of the jobs out there, no matter if hospitality or not, it's always a good thing if you're comfortable talking in front of people. It will always at some point happen, probably. And the whole idea of not selling yourself, I don't like that, but presenting like what you stand for and what you care about and all of that. It's a good thing that we learned that so early on, I would say.
Absolutely, yeah.
But like you said, so you guys had a very similar background. So of course, at some point, you really needed to get those tech people interested in your idea, because of course, someone had to also probably tell you, is this even feasible? And I would be really interested, because I never actually knew how that came about. Who did you reach out first, and how did you, I don't know, start these conversations? Who to collaborate with for the next steps?
That's a good question. And that's something I'm very happy that the EHL is now focusing more on coding classes and tech and bringing this into the classroom, because I think it really is. It was a gap for us. It was kind of a blessing in disguise at some point as well, because we were so naive to what was possible that we were kind of, shoot for the stars and let's build a rocket. We saw the technology existed in another industry, so in the automotive industry, and that when you're driving in a car, within those cars they have cameras and you can read the speed signs, and it relays that back to the car and tells you what speed you should be driving. And that was our first inclination of kind of what we called image technology, because we didn't know about image processing, or we didn't know any of the terminology. We didn't know any of this. So we just said, okay, we want to use cameras to take pictures of food. And that was pretty much the extent of our knowledge when it came to how we were going to build this technologically. And then we met with a lot of people who actually told us that it wasn't going to be possible to do it in a fully automated way, that we would need a button, we would need to change the processes in the kitchen, and basically tried to steer us in another way. And so it took quite a while till we found the first person who would build the prototype for us. And it came out that basically we would ask at every event, every opportunity, every person we met, we would ask them if they knew anyone who could build this kind of camera apparatus thing that we wanted to build to put over a trash bin, just to prototype it and see if this idea would work. And one of the people that we came in contact with was a master's student at ETH, and he had heard of 3 guys who were in their studies who wanted to start an association called Unicorn Labs. And Unicorn Labs was going to build prototypes for startups. And it was just, it was perfect timing. They were looking for a prototype to be the first in their portfolio, and they were willing to do everything for free, except for the material costs. And so they essentially built us a 3D printed version of the product, so that we could at least have a physical prototype. And then from there, we found people through InnoSwiss, through different projects actually from the Swiss government that supported us to find a lot of tech talent.
But it's crazy that at the beginning people told you, it's not possible. Like, I don't know. I think if I was in this position, it just needs so much strength to just really continue and say like, no, I'm sure I can find this one person who will build me my my prototype the way I want it, and not, a way that is just already known. So it takes perseverance. We were open to building it in a way that we hadn't imagined it, but we didn't want to be told that it was not feasible, because we're like, okay, if you can send a rocket to Mars, like, you can send people to outer space, and we can explore space, we can explore so many other things. We have technology that can do far more advanced problems than food waste. Why? Like, it should not be a no. It's just that we haven't invested enough time, enough effort into this problem to really see that this could be a solution. So that's a smart way of putting it, actually. Next time someone's going to tell me, oh yeah, you can't do it, and we're like, we can shoot people to the moon.
It's true that there are way more impressive things happening in the world.
And yeah, like we said before, it's been now 5 years already since you founded the company. So I'm sure that on your journey so far, there must have been like big surprises in a way. So things that you reached much earlier than you thought, or something that came out of the blue and you would have never thought that this was going to be even a thing or a problem. Is there any thing that pops up in your mind that you can share from the undoubtedly very exciting journey?
Absolutely. There have been so many, because I think if you would have asked us 5 years ago where we thought we would be, we couldn't imagine this. We couldn't imagine Kaitro being so big. We couldn't imagine that we have a team of 18 people now. So a lot of really positive things. The funding that we got, I remember the first time somebody offered us 250,000 under terrible terms, but they offered it as an investment. And we were like, oh my God, somebody wants to give us $250,000 for Kaitro, which is an idea we found out of nothing. And we were so excited. We thankfully reality check and declined that offer, but that was a moment for us. We were like, okay, we never thought we'd get to a point where somebody would want to we had hoped, obviously, but we never thought we'd get to a point where people were going to put in their savings and their money to see this project become a reality.
Why did you decline it?
The terms were really bad. It was like in 2018, so it was when our first year in operation, and yeah, it was really bad terms. It was kind of a loan, but then also it wasn't a convertible loan because we had to pay it back, and the guy got anyway. It was very complicated and really unattractive loan. But we were equity money, but we were quite inexperienced when it came to investment, so we almost took the money. But that's why super lucky along the entire 5 ways to have really great mentors and advisors, whether it's professors from university or just people that we've come into contact with through different programs that have really guided us and made sure that we kind of avoided some of those I'd say not so smart moves that could have been made. Yeah, but definitely one of the biggest unforeseeable surprises was that there would be a pandemic that would shut down the entire industry for 2 years, I think. That was really, really unfortunate timing. There's always a silver lining. We got to focus on a lot of the foundational parts of Kaitro and really work on, building it up to be stronger when we came back and the industry recovered. So now the product has advanced. The customers are more aware of sustainable development and the reason to invest in sustainable solutions. So there are a lot of positives, but that was something that kind of we really didn't believe it was happening for 2 years. But also because that we were able to survive it.
Especially for you, it's really at the core of what you need, right? So if all the public or commercial kitchens close down, of course, like you said, of course, you use the time to work on the product itself, maybe also company structure like within. But yeah, it hit you a bit more than, I don't know, a bank or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we found out because, first our scale manufacturer were based in Wuhan. And they were like, yeah, we're going to have to close down. Yeah. We're like, oh, okay, some virus over there. And then like one by one, all of our devices stopped operating because everyone was closing down except for one retirement home or 2 retirement homes. And we were like, okay, we need to start focusing on the medical sector and really get into hospitals and retirement homes and start measuring there, because that was at least a safe bet that those would continue operating. But yeah, everyone stopped operating. And I mean, electronical shortage, component shortages, delays in equipment. It was not the best time to be focused on measuring food waste in the hospitality industry.
But did you manage to get new clients in the health industry during those 2 years, or how was that?
Yeah, so we got more hospitals and retirement homes on board. We also started working with a partner in Australia because they've had, at the time, less of an impact from COVID and then later on a bigger lockdown. So we were able to kind of navigate and work with whatever we could throughout the 2 years. But it definitely, we were on a really good ramp up phase before, and it really kind of held the brakes there, and that we haven't really seen the recovery until December last year was when the market started to really recover and people said, okay, now we're going to start to invest again in our operations and in sustainability.
And have you seen over the last 5 years, you just said that there has been a shift in the consumer base as well towards like a more open-minded approach to sustainable solutions. So has it gotten easier for you to sell the idea in a way?
Yeah, I think at the beginning, 5 years ago, I used to make these calls and people were like, no, but we don't have food waste. I was like, it's actually impossible for a restaurant not to have any food waste. So it's like, okay, no, you do have food. So first it was actually just explaining what food waste was and how they contribute to food waste and why food waste is a problem financially and environmentally. So the conversation was really, really at the beginning. And now when you call, it's really, the industry has changed their focus. Food waste is a topic that the majority are familiar with. They know that they have to do something. A lot of are mandated to report food waste numbers every year, especially in the bigger companies. And so now it's much less about why should you do something against food waste, but really why is Kaitro the optimal solution to mitigate your food waste and support your staff in improving their operations.
Have you seen more competition come to the market as well in the last few years?
Yes, absolutely. Which is a good sign. The first time we heard one of our competitors had released a solution very moving in the same direction as ours with AI driven automation, we were like, oh my gosh, we have to give up. They're bigger than us. They have more resources. We need to walk away. And then actually one of our mentors was like, you know what? It's a really, really good sign. The more competitors that come into the market, the more competitors that are moving in the direction that you have already moved in, that's a great sign. That means you're doing something right and there's a market for it, there's a demand for it, and just continue, stick to your USP, stick to what makes you different, and multiple people can operate in this environment. It's not going to be a one person takes all.
I mean, it also creates a market in the end, right? Because you're at the same time all making it more normal to use a product like this. In the end, of course, it depends which product the companies are using, but it can also help, definitely.
Absolutely. And we're in a unique position that, I mean, competition for our type of company is the best thing that can happen for the planet, right? If we have too many people fighting food waste, that's a really good sign. So we can't be mad at anyone who comes into the industry, but actually just say, okay, great, another person that's going to support, because there's a lot of food that needs to be a food waste that needs to be prevented.
And what would you say is your USP that is still setting you apart from new competition coming into the market?
Yeah, so one is definitely the way that we've built the hardware that goes into the kitchens and dishwashing area. Because we worked as chefs and in service, we really wanted to prioritize not changing any of the operations, so that there's no buttons, that the device moves around the kitchen. It's not attached to a wall. You can use any of your trash bins, so you're not changing trash bins. And this we really talked to throughout the first 3 years, primarily for the hardware, was really talking about to everyone from the kitchen staff, the dishwashers, the cleaning ladies, anyone who would come in contact with our device, to understand how can we improve it and make it as optimal so that we're not intruding in the workspace at all. And always focusing on kind of on this automation. So allowing us to really collect all the data, all the information of what is actually falling into your trash bin, not just occasional transactions, but really every transaction that happens in your trash bin. What is happening? How much? Where are your trends? And then actually during COVID, it's been more and more about how we present the data and how we support customers to achieve the reductions that they're looking for.
And I think in the 10 for 10 show, for everyone who's not Swiss, it's an important news show in Switzerland that is always aired at 9:50, so at 10 to 10. That's why it's called like that. And there was a big segment on you guys, and I think there you said that the reason you found out over time that the main motivation of many companies was not to actually save the food, but it was just to be more operationally efficient and save costs.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it also makes sense. It's an industry with really low margins and really high turnover. It's a quite heavily pressed industry in that people are overworked and underpaid. And so I think it makes sense that the industry is still focused on how can we improve our operations, reduce HR needs, reduce staff training, and increase those margins a bit. And that's essentially what we also focus on is making sure that there is not a lot of staff training that needs to go into using our product, because you don't have to push any buttons. You can increase your food profit margins by 8%. So really, there's so many wins with tackling food waste that it needs to just become a norm that everyone is doing it. Yeah.
Well, hopefully soon. we are all doing our parts. And of course, I follow you closely on LinkedIn and in TV on everything. But I just saw, and you just also mentioned that you hired a lot of people in the recent weeks and months. It seemed like every time I opened LinkedIn, there was a new welcome, Max. You are da, 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 da. So how did that happen? What was the I'm sure you got financing or something, because that usually correlates with a lot of hires. But yeah, tell us a bit about how the structure is changing and why this is happening now.
Yeah, so it's a mix, to be honest. LinkedIn is always deceiving because you're always posting the positives that are happening. We let go of a few members for performance and other reasons, but some have been refilling those positions. But there has definitely been a lot of growth in the team as well. And this is to really focus on the growth and expansion of Kaitro. So we've been focused primarily on Switzerland, but have operations in other countries. But this year we really want to go into or further expand into Germany and France. And so really setting up the business side for that. And to be honest, we've been quite understaffed during COVID. We were kind of taking our resources very lightly so that we could make it through there. And then we closed a financing round last year with existing investors as well as 2 new ones, and got technology fund grant from the Swiss government, which has allowed us to also accelerate our growth. But I mean, I think it's every startup story that finished the funding round and now we're back in one. So we're doing another Series A funding, not another one, but we're doing another funding round for a Series A, which we're currently in, to further support that expansion and growth into the new market.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't have a lot of friends that are entrepreneurs, but I do have some, like everyone probably. And every time they tell me about like where they're at and what the next steps are, I'm always like, oh my God, this seems so stressful. It's of course, if it's your baby and you believe in it 120%, then you can do it and you can make it through it. But every time I think, I don't know if I had the strength to actually, every time get up again and start over all the way, because every little win also means that, okay, next thing.
But that's funny that you say this, because I talked with Anastasia, the co-founder, the other day about this, and we were saying that whenever you're in the shit, you're always like, okay, it's not going to get worse than this. And it always is a bigger success to come out of it, and then you're in the next shit. And then like you're just like constantly, and you never think it's going to get harder than that. You're like, okay, 6 months from now, it's probably going to be easier. We're going to have funding. We're going to cruise along. It's going to be fine. And then the next hurdle comes, and the next hurdle. And I think in a way, that deception that it's never going to get harder or there's never going to be a bigger challenge coming allows you to keep pushing to go to the next step and the next one. But it is a roller coaster for sure. It's a lot of ups and downs, but definitely worth it so far.
Yeah, and also my boyfriend also, he founded his own company, and every time I talk to him about like the benefits and the disadvantages, because of course I'm just a normal employee, it's very interesting, because I think everyone's also different, and he gets a lot of energy out of the ups and downs and how much impact he has in his everyday life, and I completely understand that. But it's broadening the horizons when you speak to people that are just a bit, I'm just very risk averse. I think really it would not be for me. And it's good that I know that. But I can see how it's also a super, super rewarding journey. So don't get me wrong. I didn't want to sound like negative or anything.
No, I get both sides. I get, I think I really love the entrepreneur life and all the learnings that I've had, but I definitely see the value in stability and being part of a bigger corporate or a bigger group. So I think both have their pros and cons.
Definitely. So tell us, what are some of the next few goals or challenges coming up this year and then the following years? What's the roadmap for Kaitro?
Yeah. So right now we have our focus on expanding our market share in Switzerland, as I mentioned before, but also in Germany primarily. So we have about 100 devices that are active, and we want to triple that number by the end of the year. So pretty strong growth planned there. We also have a new product development coming out for the dashboard with new features, which is very exciting, but I'm not going to say what they are, but they're really cool. So I'm personally quite excited for that, but that probably is end of the year. So I think in general, we're quite excited to see that the market is recovering, that people are coming back, they're signing deals, they're signing longer contracts. We have contracts that go up to 8 years, which is really cool to see that people are not only saying that they're going to measure food waste, but they're really going to make it a priority and stick to it and walk the talk for the next 8 years, which is great to see. So
that's quite crazy. That's quite crazy because they are signing up for something that's very different than, you know, what they've done before. So a commitment for right away 8 years is really a sign of trust. Yeah,
which is super. That was a massive highlight for us, and I think the contracts are only getting longer and longer now, where people say, okay, if we're going to do this, we really want to. We want to commit. We want a solution where we can compare year after year. We want to have really transparency in our reporting. And I think it makes sense to do it this way. You don't want to do one thing one year and then people say, well, I can just fix my problem in a few months and then it's over, right? And it just doesn't work like that. You need consistency and you need to have this transparency. And especially in our industry where you have high turnover and things are constantly changing as seasonality changes. So it's exciting to see. And
sorry, no, go on.
I was just going to say there's a lot of regulations coming out on food waste, which I think, unfortunately, but very exciting, is that it will change the industry. It will change the way that we approach food waste and the speed at which we do it, because it's mandated. And we see it on country levels and we're seeing it on company levels. And I think this is really going to push us to really take action, which is exciting, at least for us to see.
I was just going to say if there's a minimum that you recommend as well, because of course, the reason you just stated, it's true. Like you have to give it a chance for quite some time. Otherwise you can never actually measure the evolution of it.
Yeah. I mean, measuring at least, something is better than nothing, I would say. But we've seen in the past is that it was very favorable to do kind of 2-week audits. And the problem with these is that when they were done manually, so someone's standing in the kitchen and just measuring by hand for 2 weeks, and you change your behavior when there's someone standing there weighing every pot of food waste or pot that's going to be wasted. And typically it was done during a time when the kitchen staff had time to undergo this audit. So it just gives a completely false perception of what is happening in the kitchen. And we see 2 weeks where it can be, you have events, you have a certain menu, and you'll have a huge amount of food waste and then the next not. So you really need to find your trend and your kind of baseline. So we do minimum measurements of 12 months.
Okay, that makes sense. So 2 last questions, and one, because I also forgot to ask at the beginning, why the name Kaitro?
It's kitchen hero together.
Aww, I never knew this. Why did I never know this?
We don't really tell people, but everyone loves but we wanted a name that was short, and then we thought Kaitro sounded kind of high tech and maybe even a bit Asian, so we thought that was cool and kind of high tech. But we don't really tell people this, but I'm glad you liked the meaning behind it.
Well, all our listeners know now. We are a very exclusive group. And then the last question, if you could give one tip to aspiring entrepreneurs in our industry, what would the one thing be that you would tell them? And you can't say don't stop believing in yourself. That's just too generic.
Yeah, I won't say you can't stop believing in yourself, because you can. I think what's more important is to have somebody, a co-founder, a partner that is there beside you, so that when you do stop believing in yourself, there's someone to pick you back up and be like, no, remember why we started this? We got to keep going. You're going to have so many lows but so many highs, and to have somebody who's really that you can trust and who's an equal contributor and an equal force within the company. I think this is the reason that we're still doing Kaitro and it's gotten to where it is because we're two that could constantly support each other and really kind of pick up the slack when the other was down, or bring the other person back up. And it's gone both ways, where we've both had our equal lows and equal highs, and made sure that the other person is enjoying the journey as well.
And would you say it's important that the other person, like in your case, really had the idea with you together, or can that other person also be someone that you picked up along the way somehow?
You know, I definitely don't think you need to have the idea together. I think what is important is for Anastasia and I, it was very clear from the beginning that we were going to do it 50-50. Like she was going to take 50%, I was going to take 50%, and we were going to just give it our all. And the worst thing that could happen is that we look back and we said we didn't give it our all. And we were very clear about this for that would be kind of failing for ourselves. And I think it didn't matter that we started it together, but more that we saw each other and still see each other as equal in the whole process.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time. We're already at the end of our little session. I wish you guys all the best. And I would actually love, when I'm back in Zurich one day, to come like look at your offices and also the device, because I've never seen it. I've always seen videos and everything. So maybe we can make that happen.
Absolutely. You're welcome anytime. Just let me know when you're back, and happy to set that up.
Perfect. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you.
That's it for this episode, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to share your thoughts on this episode and everything else that is going on at Smack with us by checking out our website at smack.media or connect with us on LinkedIn, YouTube, or Instagram. We'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe to Smack and click here for more.